Hello, and welcome to this series of podcasts on Gordie Gillespie, who many of us believe was the greatest coach of all time. I hope that these conversations with players and friends of Gordie will help illuminate Gordie's greatness. But more importantly, I hope we can learn how Gordie did it. He was the winningest collegiate baseball coach of all time and the greatest Illinois high school football coach of all time. But we're not interested in his secrets of winning games, but his secrets of winning the hearts, minds, and the development of his young athletes. Dr. Joseph McFADDEN, or Tippy to his friends, was an outstanding teacher, mentor, and friend who rose quickly in academic ranks to become president of 3 universities. Gordie was Tippy's friend and mentor early in his career. Tippy tells us how profoundly Gordie motivated athletes and friends alike. Hello, everyone. My name is Ray Coughlin, and welcome to these podcasts on Gordie Gillespie, Coach the Kid at the End of the Bench. And today I have an absolutely phenomenal honor to have as my guest Dr. Joseph McFADDEN, whose nickname is Tippy, Tip. And so you'll be hearing me call him that, and I'm sure you're going to say to me, wait a minute, Ray, if he has been president of 3 different universities, isn't that amazing? 3 different universities, shouldn't you be calling him Dr. McFADDEN? Well, Tippy was my incredible mentor. I was a C student in high school. He took me under his wing. I never even had Tip for class, and he taught me how to write, how to prepare for class, how to take notes. And I was just dripping on everything he said. And essentially, he was one-hand man who turned me from a C student in high school to a virtual straight A student in math and physics. And I owe so much of not only my academic career in college, but he taught me how to write and all these wonderful things. So it's a great, great honor for me to welcome Dr. Joseph McFADDEN. Tippy got out of the Navy, had a stellar career in the services about 1957. And then he got a job at Joliet Catholic Academy for about 3 years. And then Gordie helped him get a position at Lewis College, now Lewis University in Joliet. He was there for about 10 years. Then he went to the University of Northern Kentucky and then Slippery Rock. And then he had this idea of becoming a president of a university. And he became president of Northern State University in South Dakota, and then the University of South Dakota for several years. And then for about 9 or 10 years, he was president of St. Thomas University in Houston. By the way, in his first year as president of St. Thomas University, he had a dramatic effect on enrollment and in endowment. The enrollment went from about 1,800 to 2,500 in his first year. And the endowment went from 5 million to 35 million. So Tippy's had this marvelous career. Now, let me start, Tip, by answering that question. Why in the world am I calling you Tip? Where did that nickname come from?
Well, actually, I got it at birth because I was born on Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And my mom had a lot of smart Alec brothers. And they started calling me Aby. And she didn't like that. And she knew the only way you can get rid of one nickname is with another. And I remember there was a dog in the neighborhood that she liked was called Tipper.
Oh.
So she named me after the dog. When I went in the Navy, I tried to hide it when I got my first serious position, but my friends wouldn't stop calling me that. So and when I went to a strange place, they'd say, "What's everybody calling you?" And then they wanted to, if I was their friend, well, I'm your friend, I'll call you that too.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Did the faculty member at these universities, when you're president, did they call you a Tip?
After I was there a while, yes.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I thought for sure you were going to say something about Tip O'Neill, the great senator from Massachusetts.
No,
you're named after a dog. All right.
Yeah.
All right, now, you've had this incredible, wonderful, stellar, you were just an amazing teacher. Look what you did for me. I'm sure you did this with all kind of, I know you've told me you really thought of yourself as a teacher, and you applied that as you were president. But I'm sure that you started your stellar academic career right away as you got out of the Navy, right?
No,
No.
no, I didn't know what I wanted to do. You remember, I've been away from school for 2 years out in the Philippines. And so I didn't know. I took a little while. And so there was a lot of jobs available. This is 56. So there was a lot of jobs available. So I went to an employment agency and they gave me a couple of interviews. And I took an interview with the Burroughs Corporation. And the guy who was the recruiter was an older gentleman. He just was the nicest guy I ever met. And I took that job because of him, because he really liked me. And he pushed me up to the top. I never had a course in accounting. And I was a history major, and I'm going to sell adding machines. Burroughs put out a 10-key adding machine that was brand new.
Uh-huh.
So I was hitting the streets in downtown Chicago, knocking on office doors. In a very short time, I realized I don't like this. I don't like talking to people who don't like talking to me. And so after 6 months, I went to Bill, the guy who hired me, Bill. And I said, Bill, I can't do this. He said, yes, you can. I want you to do one thing for me. I said, what? He said, I want you to go for another week with this other salesman, and then we'll talk. So I went with this guy for a week, and I realized what Bill was trying to show me. This guy was terrific. I could do this. So I went back, and I said, Bill, here's my answer. Make me the vice president of Burroughs Corporation, and I still quit. I don't want to do this. I don't know anything about this accounting. I really don't want to do this. He said, okay, I give up. But I want you to do one more thing. Oh, come on, Bill, let me out of here. Friday afternoon of last week. No, I said, I want you to do one more thing. I want you to go see the boss and tell him thank you for the opportunity, that you're moving on to something else. And I said, the boss was a guy hunched up like this. We call him the frog. And I said, the frog doesn't even know I'm alive. He said, yes, he does. I want you to do that. Please do it. I said, okay. So it's about 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. So I go in. He said, Mr. So-and-so, here's the gentleman we were talking about. And he looked at me and got up out of his chair, almost violently, walked around the chair, put his arm around my shoulder. I said, look out there. And he said, what do you see? I said, I see a room full of salesmen. He said, that's right. What the hell are those people doing in there? Why aren't they out on the road selling? You know why? Because they don't like their job. You just thank your lucky stars that you got the guts to get out of something that you didn't like. Congratulations and good luck. And I went out of there, instead of going out, I remember going to my dad and saying, Dad, will the world ever forgive me for failing in my first job? He kept a straight face and answered, no, I think they'll get over it. But anyway, I went out and I 9 foot tall, ready to go. And in 2 weeks, you know what happened? Back in those days, we had a lot of the big Catholic community, Joliet, a lot of different ethnic groups. And we quickly learned that the Polish, the Czech, those Catholic ethnic groups always had great wedding parties. So somebody knew somebody that we could break into them and get free beer and free food. So I went to one of those Polish weddings, and I met a Carmelite priest from Catholic High who started his first year, the year I did my practice teaching at Catholic High. And we became friends because we were the closest thing to new teachers. And he said, what are you doing? I said, right now I'm looking for a job. He said, would you consider teaching? I said, I'd consider anything. Monday morning, I got a call from Catholic High, Father Sheen. I understand you're interested in teaching. I said, well, I'll consider it. He said, well, run down tomorrow morning, we'll talk. So I went down to Catholic High. I only lived 4 blocks. So I walked down Catholic High, walked into his office, introduced myself, Father Shane. He said, "Oh, good." He said, "Now here's your schedule." He said, "You'll be teaching 3 courses of world community, 2 of this. Now I see that on your history, you also had algebra, college algebra. So you could teach a course in algebra too." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." I just felt like the Holy Spirit had me by the back of the neck. Just shut up and go ahead. So that's how I didn't know hard to say no. Let me think about it. I started the next week.
That's very similar to my story because I told you I wanted to play baseball that summer after I graduated in '65. And Gordie is the person who hounded me every day. "Did you apply to graduate school?" Yes. So finally I applied, simply to get him off my back. And then here I find myself going to that old graduate school. In my first meeting with Dr. Reisel, the chair, told me what I was going to take. And then he hands me a book on college algebra. And he says, here's the book, and you'll be teaching 2 sections of college algebra. And that was my teacher training. I was petrified walking into that first class. You must have been also. Goodness gracious.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about how you became track coach. I hear that Mr. Gillespie had something to do with that.
Well, at Catholic High, Gordie, he was, I was thinking about Gordie because of our today. And Gordie was a guy who you could never do as much for him as what he did for you. I think almost everybody who worked on his teams or worked with him would say the same thing.
That's an incredible beautiful way to put it. I love that.
Well, he first thing he said was, how about teaching freshman football? And I thought, I never played football. I was too small. But I thought, what the heck, a couple extra bucks. And then he asked me in the spring when I started track meet, started track team. And add another thing to my record. Now, I was glad he did that because I needed the money. Because I think I started with something like $3,000 in my first year, And he knew that Catholic institutions don't pay well, usually, unless they got people that make faculty a higher priority, like me. And I never made that mistake. And anyway, that's how I got into track. And I had never been to a track meet, never saw a pair of track shoes. In fact, first time I saw them, I didn't know what the hell they were. They had spikes on them. I didn't know what it was. Well, we had good kids, and they enjoyed training, and so did I. And there was another Carolina and I took the runners, and he took the other guys. I took the dash people, and it worked out pretty well. So when I went to Lewis later, courtesy of Gordie again, he asked me to start a track program. And one of my colleagues on the faculty was interested also. So Nick Benassi and I started the track, and we had no track. And I remember a funny story about Nick. They had a football field down there. Mm-hmm. And so Lewis, it was a practice football field. So we made a kind of a track around the football field. And I got some bricks and we kind of lined it.
Oh, really? So you built your own track.
Nick measured. Yeah. So Nick measured. It was just like dirt or grass, closely cut grass. It wasn't really a track. It was something we could practice at. So Nick measured it out. So that's 1/4 mile. So I got my 1/4 milers in there, and for the first race, wham, off they go around. I said, "Hey, Nick, we just set a world record in the 1/4 mile." He didn't have it measured. And
you can get a lot of headlines with that. Yeah.
We had a lot of fun, though. And the kids are, yourself, you don't get to know kids teaching like you know them coaching. Coaching is something that it taught me that I thought I knew kids well as a teacher, but coaching, you really get to know them. So I tried to use what I learned in coaching more in teaching so that I have better experience. Not as close as you can get as coaching. I recognize that. You spend more time with them,
Mhm.
But it was a very good experience because I love that. But then, I got to the point where I had to make a choice. I had to go on and get my PhD. I can't do both. And I don't see myself as a track coach. I see myself as a historian. And Gordie was very thankful, and Lewis was supportive, and Nick took on the track team by himself, and I went to Northern, got a sabbatical, and that's what put me over the line, because that's when Northern was a new place with PhDs, and they wanted to get me out of there because I was the second one to graduate. And so they gave me all the help in the world. So
What year did you get your PhD?
I think I got my PhD in 67 or 68.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. So I think I finished my master's in 61 or 62. And so I started a PhD in 63.
Mm-hmm.
It took me about 4 years, about 67 or 68 before I finished, yeah.
Well, here's a connection. I got mine in 69. So let's say you got yours in 68. And a year later, I get mine. And the only reason I even came close to getting a PhD, even getting into graduate school, is because of one Dr. Joseph Tippy McFADDEN. So there's quite a connection there. But listen, let me tell the story of how you got your position at Lewis. You were coming back from getting your master's degree at the University of Chicago.
Yeah. I was on my way back Friday afternoon. I thought I'd stop in and say hello to Gordie, to Lewis, and my office was in the gym in his office right behind him. So I was there, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I've come back I got about one more semester and I'm done." And I said, I want to go on for my PhD and teach in college. I was teaching at a Catholic high. And he said, well, why don't you apply here? The Christian brothers are moving in, and there'll be good people to work for. And Brother Paul is the new president. I would love to introduce him to you. And I said, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I've got my master. I'm not ready. He said, you're not ready. He said, Tip, if New York Knickerbockers call me tomorrow and tell me that they want me to be the coach, I'm going. What do you mean you're not ready? You never say you're not ready. So next day I got a call from Brother Paul. So I went to see him the next day and got the job. Started my career.
You were at Lewis for about 10 years.
No, I was at Lewis for 10 years. So this was in 1960 when I had that conversation with Gordie.
I didn't realize it was in 1960 because think of this other connection now. So in 1961, I arrived as a freshman at Lewis, and Gordie comes up to me. Now I'd like to say I'm the 13th man on the 12-man basketball team. Whenever we do our drills and then we'd split up into a scrimmage, I was always one of the guys sitting on the side. And he came up to me, and most coaches would have not paid any attention. He didn't see anything in me. I couldn't shoot well. I couldn't jump with these catcher's legs. And so he shunts me to the side. And so, but he comes up to me, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks into practice, so October. And he says, Ray, you should be getting A's. Now my coach is telling me I should be getting A's. What are you talking about? He said, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Joseph McFADDEN. Now you don't have your PhD at all. You're just a relatively new professor. And yet here you took the time to sit down with me 2, 3 times a week in the locker room. The two of us would get there early. So if we had 3 o'clock practice, I'd get there at 2:30 and you'd sit down and you'd say, all right, now Ray, when you open your book, do this. You taught me how to take notes. Absolutely amazing. Look at that. So there's another connection between you and me and Gordie. Really incredible.
We've had a lot of connections between you and me and Gordie, and what you're doing, your friends, and so on. And you have more stories than I remember.
So you were telling me while you're writing your thesis, you were the track coach, but then you told him you had to quit. Was that right? While you were writing your thesis?
No, yes, I had to. Once I was far enough along that I was going to start, I had to quit because I had too much work to do. And I was disappointed in a way because I liked it, but I couldn't, if you really want to be good at something, you have to throw yourself into it. And I had two things I wanted to be good at. I can't do those. I couldn't do two things. I didn't have time. So since I couldn't do justice to one, I better walk away from that. And that's when I decided, when I went on a sabbatical and finished my, you have to have a year full-time study. So the Northern bent over backward to let me go in the summer and the fall and count that as a year.
So they counted, oh, wow, that's wonderful.
And the brothers were good enough to let me off, give me a leave of absence. Let me teach one class that summer and one class that in the evening that fall, so I could make a little extra money. And then with the assistantship that they gave me at Northern and the GI Bill, we could make it with a new house and with a little boy, and we could do it. We did it.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Now, in '69, I was teaching at Loyola, and you called me and said you'd like me to.
I had my doctorate by then. I'm a vice president.
You were the vice president then. And I reflected at that time just what you're talking about now, and all that Gordie meant to me, and all he taught me in those 4 years. And we're pretty sure, Tony Delgado and I, that we're the only two guys who played 8 seasons for Gordie, but also we played more during the summer for 3 seasons. So in that sense, we almost played 11 seasons with him. And so he just left these indelible marks. And as you have said a number of times to me, he seemed to see beyond where an individual would see. So when you said, well, I'm not ready to become a professor in college, he says, what do you mean you're not? And he talked me into it. And, I can remember feeling terrible that I was not able to take that position. But as you've said a number of times, you had to change positions I didn't know whether I wanted to coach or go into academia, into research.
Yeah. I couldn't do both at the standard that I wanted. So, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professor. And, Gordie made you, he didn't tell you what his standards were, but you knew they were high.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to disappoint him. He was that kind of person. He never set you down and said, don't you ever disappoint me. And you do what I say. But we all knew that. He led by just being Gordie.
Yeah. And look, I never had you as a professor, but look at the profound effect you had on me. And you never played for Gordie. And look at the profound effect he had on you. Isn't that interesting? And so, those things that he did for us, I would imagine that when you said to yourself, when will I become president of the university? I mean, that has never occurred to me that I wanted a job like that high up on the chain. And you must have looked back and said, Gordie gave me confidence in previous things that I did. Maybe I can do this also.
Like he said before, he said, when they ask you to do something, don't you worry about being ready. They're asking you, you're ready.
Just go and do it.
Yeah. I knew him for 10 great years. Actually, more than that, 13. 3 as Catholic and 10, and I was in the same office most of the time.
So, is that right? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's really fantastic. I can't thank you enough. This has been riveting, and it's so much fun for me to catch up with you. I owe you so much. And the last time I talked to Gordie, I called him and I said, can I come over and see you? He says, yeah, I think I owe you money. I said, no, you don't owe me any money. I said, I owe you my life. And to you, Joseph McFadden, I say that also. I owe you my academic career for everything that I've done.
Well, thank you, Ray. Thank you for remembering all those stories because I'd forgotten them all. Getting old.
We had this great mutual friend who formed our life, right, Tippy?
God bless you.
All right, God bless you. Thanks an awful lot.